It's okay to go through change. It's okay to say that you're done with something, and it's okay to reinvent yourself. I think every 5 years, people change. Everybody has a different mindset. You grow, and that's part of growth, right? But it's okay. You're always going to have your sense of identity for who you are, but you're going to be a different person as you grow older, and over time, you're going to become a different person. But I had to learn, especially throughout this year, to be patient. You're not going to have it all figured out. Not even a little bit. You're going to have to go through trials, tribulations, some good, some bad, some roller coasters. It's going to get emotional. It's going to get tough. But that is legitimately part of the process. Like, it's 100% part of the process for anybody. You have to go through those things to learn and to grow. You can't know what winning feels like if you've never lost.
What's up, Savage Boss Babes and Dudes? It's Diana inside the Savage Studio once again. This episode brought to you by Savage Coffee, now located inside the Boeing Center at Techport. And this episode, I'm very happy and very pleased that my following guest accepted the invitation to be here. This is Chasity Morales, and if you don't know, she's on social media and always making me feel like I need to get up and I need to get to the gym and I need to get my workout done, which is good. It's a positive impact. That's the whole point, right?
Motivation, of course. That's
exactly.
Why I
post. But if you aren't following her yet, you definitely are going to want to look her up and start looking at some of her stuff, because it definitely does impulse you to want to get up and start moving around. So I'm really glad that you accepted the invitation to be here today, Chasity.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. When you messaged me, like I was talking to you about earlier, I just felt very empowered by a lot of the stuff you were posting. So for sure, I'm very, very honored to be here, and I'm so excited to kind of communicate with you and get to know you and share my story and everything on top of that.
I'm excited. So every time that I see something on my feed, it's you knocking out these killer workouts, and I'm just like, did this girl grow up like this? Like, was little Chasity always picking up barbells and doing jumping jacks and burpees and all kinds of stuff? What was little Chasity like?
To be honest, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So when I grew up, I was in sports. I've been in sports my entire life. You know, I grew up with a single mom, and if anybody knows my mom, she's not necessarily the most athletic, so definitely inherited that gene from my dad. But grew up with a single mom, and you know, she constantly wanted me to calm down, put it that way. I was so energetic. So sports was something that she just said, you know what, it's not something I pretty much dabble in, but it's something that you seem to really enjoy and that kind of you can spend a lot of your energy on. And just as I grew up, you know, I constantly was exercising, and I was always in some type of sport, always on some type of team. And just growing up over time, I just fell in love with exercise, and I didn't know anything different. You know, I was always in the gym. I was always preparing for something, and it was always something that I kind of saw as like an escape for myself and something I could really put all of my time and energy to and become good at. Yeah. So I just kind of developed that mindset, and then just over time, going into the gym world and going into, you know, the fitness world, it was a very easy transition. And as a kid, I understood exercise and how important it was. And then even as an adult, like continuously keep learning about these things and putting out certain workouts that I can just kind of experiment with, and potentially, you know, motivate somebody like yourself to want to live a healthier lifestyle. That's kind of like my whole objective as to what I do. But definitely, yeah, I think growing up playing sports was something that really kind of gave me that experience and gave me that passion to want to continue to do it and to potentially help other people.
So where is home?
San Antonio.
Nice.
Yeah, San Antonio
so
has
born
always
and raised
been
here.
Yeah, 100%. I'm born and raised San Antonio. I spent some time living in Austin, not too far away, but far enough. I always talk about that. It was like my little escape to something different, but I was always coming back home to spend time with my family, and friends and people I grew up with here in San Antonio. I mean,
where's your family from?
They're from San Antonio as well. Some of my family's from Mexico. Some of my family is from Brazil. But overall, immediate families born and raised San Antonio. I think we're all more spread out now. Just, you know, as time went on, everybody just kind of dispersed and they're doing their own things. But honestly, I think everybody's kind of kept it real in Texas. Like, I don't think anybody's outside of Texas. Maybe my mom is, but that's very recent. But more family, I think, is kind of more so within the Texas boundaries.
So tell me about your mom growing up with her.
She's the best.
That relationship and that dynamic between you and her.
I mean, it was rough growing up. You know, my mom had me very young. So she was she was obviously a new mom, but she was doing a lot of things on her own. You know, my dad was away for a while, but she somehow as a 19-year-old kid, pretty much figured out how to raise her first child and put herself through life without any experience. You know, she was an only child, lived with her grandmother. And when her grandmother had passed away, you know, she tried looking for help, and she tried, you know, doing the best that she could to make sure I had everything that I needed growing up. And I always do appreciate her for this. Like, even though me and my mom had a very rocky like relationship growing up, you know, we were very close in age, as you want to say, she was growing up with me. And she always constantly tells me this, like, you helped me grow up, and you taught me so many things about what it meant to be a strong woman and to be an adult, because I had to do whatever it took to take care of you. And I respect that to the absolute fullest. Growing up, I didn't, you know, I was always against what she was saying, because obviously I'm a kid, you know, no rules. Like, that's kind of how we wanted to do it. And she was in the place of trying to teach me certain things while she was still trying to teach herself. So yeah, I think it was amazing growing up with her. We always talk about that, how we grew up together. But my mom is one of the most strongest women I know. You know, she's been through so much. She's taught me so much. She's the reason why, you know, I've been able to overcome so many things and accomplish so many things. And she's always been my biggest supporter, no matter what. Even if she didn't agree with it, she's 100% been the person that's like, you know what, we're always going to figure out how to solve the problem. We're always going to make sure that you don't know the word can't. She always tells me that all the time. Whether it was in sports, like I said, she was not athletic. So somehow, some way, she was able to afford me to go to play collegiate soccer. I played for the city. I played varsity all throughout high school. You know, I was going to play in college as well, but I decided to take another route, which she completely supported, to go into dentistry, into professional football, into owning gyms. My mom has been there every single step of the way. And again, she's always been my biggest rock and my backbone in a lot of things that I've done. Anytime I've ever had a breaking point, it's the first person I call, no matter what, because she's going to tell it to me straight, but she's also going to make sure that she gives me that motivation to not want to quit. So I appreciate her so much more than I can even put into words, because there's so much respect behind what she's been able to do, but there's so much appreciation for her continuous support for me.
You just mentioned, I mean, she was a kid herself, raising another kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Was there things that you saw that she had to do to be able to give you a better life and offer you maybe something that she wasn't offered or that she didn't have available to her? And what were those things that you had to see her go through?
It wasn't really much of me really seeing her go through it. It was when she had to leave me certain places because she really needs to figure some things out, or had to work, right? Like, my mom hated leaving me anywhere. Like, it wasn't like, watch her for the summer. Like, I used to spend a lot of my summers in Colorado with my grandparents. And I just remember my mom being very hurt every time she had to leave me. But like, at the time,
how did you feel?
I was excited to go to grandma's house.
Okay, so you weren't hurt at all.
I wasn't hurt whatsoever, but I just remember being really very confused as to why she didn't want me, because I was going over there to have fun. I thought my mom wanted me to have a good time, but it always seemed like it was very hard for her. And those are moments that I remember with her, where she dropped me off, or she drove me all the way to Colorado, and it was always tough for her to leave me, or she had to put me on a plane, or whatever the case may be, or watch my grandparents take me away. And at the time, I didn't think much of it, because I was always so excited as a kid, like going to go hang out with my cousins and my uncles and my grandparents in Colorado. I get to see snow. I get to have like the best summer of my life. But I just remember my mom being very sad about it and super excited to see me every time I came home. Like, she was always so excited. So like, those are things that I saw. And then obviously growing up, you know, I saw her make mistakes. You know, I saw her at some breaking points, and I saw her overcome a lot of, you know, tragedy and hardship and hard times. But no matter what, like, I was always fed, I was always clothed, I was always in sports. So at the time, like I said, I didn't really understand it, you know, much. But looking back on it now as an adult, it was like, dang, I give her so many props for that. But, you know, she went through a lot. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have like the nicest things, but I had everything I needed, you know, and I was always a happy child. And I was always, you know, doing the best that I could do in anything I was doing. And again, she was my biggest supporter, even though she didn't know like half of the things I was doing or how to teach me how to play soccer or nothing, but she always found a way to make sure I got the best of what I needed. So yeah, she's a strong woman for sure.
As you're growing up and as you're developing and this relationship that you have with your mom, and what thoughts are going through your mind about what you wanted for yourself when you grew up, when you got older, you know, seeing what your mom struggled or the things that she had to overcome, was that already in you instilling like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I'm not going to do that because I don't want that result, or what was your mentality like developing as you're growing up and watching what your mom was going through and your situation?
It's hard to say that I learned from her mistakes, you know, because I did, whether it was her constantly shifting jobs. I mean, she was always looked like she was stressed out, to relationships that, you know, caused a lot of, you know, grief and pain, not only with her, but with myself. So a lot of that, you know, translated into my adulthood. But I didn't really have much of a roadmap, to be honest. Like I said, she put me in the right places to learn from the right people and to be taught the right way with what I needed to do. So she was very strategic. That was one thing that I did pick up from my mom, is how strategic she was, and how she just didn't have she never quit. Like, there wasn't a point where my mom ever said like, I'm quitting, even though like it could get to the very bottom. Somehow, some way, things got figured out. And I think that is one thing that when she always tells me, you don't know the word can't. And that's something that, you know, I still have instilled in my mind, you know, is things are going to get hard and it's going to be tough and it's going to feel like it's impossible. But if you just kind of keep yourself going and you don't say, I quit, until I mean, of course, when it gets to that point, like you have to, but you know what I mean? Like, if you tried and tried and tried, it doesn't happen. Okay. But don't say no the first time, or don't quit the first time, if that makes sense. So she's taught me a lot of that stuff, you know, and a lot of things that I should do in my life and that I shouldn't do in my life. But there really wasn't a roadmap on success, if that makes sense. I went through a lot where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. You know, I was supposed to play collegiate soccer. I ended up going to dental school. I was actually going to go to school for broadcasting. I did modeling. I did runway. I did all kinds of stuff, which back then seemed like I was all over the place. But now I look at it and I'm like, oh, you got so much experience in so many different things because you were strategic on how you approached and who you talked to and how you presented yourself in certain things, or what opportunities each thing was going to bring to you, right? It may not be I knew that a lot of those things weren't going to be my end goal, but I knew what they were going to get me later down in life, which was eventually going to be an entrepreneur. And, you know, I wanted to own my own things. I didn't want to work for nobody. And even now, like, I think looking back on that, even though I tell myself all the time, like, you were all over the place in your 20s. I mean, I think you kind of have to do that. You know, you gotta go through the ups and downs and the ins and outs all over to be able to get to a point where you are in this space where you understand a lot more and you have a plan and you know what you should and what you shouldn't do at an older age when you're trying to open up a business or build a brand or whatever the case may be.
And, you know, you mentioned, I was doing all these things and I was all over the place in my 20s, but to a certain extent, I feel like that's the way it should be. Like, you should use, I'm not saying like your entire 20s or your entire 30s or anything like that. Also, be useful with your time.
Right, for sure.
Be mindful.
For sure. Yes.
But yeah, it is to a certain extent there. You should be able to explore and
you gotta figure out what you like.
Yeah, if there's something, you know, that you want to try and you try it, maybe you didn't like it, it's not for you. Go on to the next thing.
Right. And
as long as you don't have, you know, responsibilities and you don't
be smart. Don't be crazy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But you do have to understand that failure is going to come a lot of the times. And I have a lot of 20-year-olds that I've talked to, or like younger friends, who are thinking they have to have it all figured out right now. And it's kind of funny because I had that same type of mindset. And it felt like there was so much pressure on, you have to know what you want right now. And it's like, you have so much more life you're about to live. This is your time to really explore and figure out what you like and what you're good at. And in order to do that, you got to fail once or twice. You know, you got to really overcome failure. You got to teach yourself resilience. You got to learn what achievement feels like. And that's not going to come from trying to do the same thing over and over. It's going to come from failing, 5, 10, 20, 100 times until you find something where like, oh, it sticks. But each time that you fail and you get back up, it's meant to teach you for that next step, in my opinion. And sometimes that next step may not be in forward. It may be on a completely like left turn of what you want to do, but that's the time when you got to do it. You know, I think now looking back with all the things that kind of happened within that time, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Because if I wouldn't have gone through all of that, there's no way like my head would be in the same place that it is now. I would be so confused because I wouldn't know what any outside area essentially looked like. So 100%. I loved my 20s. I had a great time in my 20s. Girl, I had the best time in my 20s.
All through high school, sports. I mean, that's pretty much the backbone of what your experience and stuff, and how you were going to go about navigating the rest of your life. So what happens after high school, after sports?
Yeah, it was a great foundation. I think it set up discipline. It showed me how to, work with the team. It taught me how to be, so consistent to be good at something. Taught me a lot about exercise, taught me a lot about the body. Yeah, and I loved it. And it was just something I could do throughout my time in school that could potentially set me up for my future. Unfortunately, I didn't play any collegiate sports, but I actually played women's professional football throughout my 20s.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so I played for the LFL for quite some time, for about 6 years. I played when I was living in Austin. I had just finished dental school, and I was a dental hygienist for a little while, and I did not like it. I'm not going to lie to you. It just was not my thing. I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel excited about going to work. I was always tired. And I'm like, I'm 23 years old, like trying to figure out what I want in my life. This isn't it. I'm not happy here. Yes, the schooling took me some time, and I was super proud of myself that I was able to finish, but it just wasn't my thing.
What part of it was just you're like, no, this was not it?
Not too many people like going to the dentist. So you're not necessarily somebody's favorite person. So you get the energy, then you get, this screaming kids, you get people, you're working people's mouths all day. It just was not like, it seemed promising when I was going to school, and my parents were so excited because it was like, oh, you're going to have a career in dentistry. And eventually I was going to look at potentially taking those next steps to become a dentist. But after working in a couple of dental offices, I was like, I'm just not happy here. But I was still exercising, and I was still trying to keep myself in shape. So I did a couple of pageants to help myself go through school. My mom did pageants when she was younger. She's so pretty when she was younger, and even now Mom, you're still beautiful. But that was like our thing. My mom, I was not a prissy girl growing up, so I was a big tomboy. So when I got older and I started getting recognized for modeling and runway shows and things like that, my mom was all about it. She's like, this is where I shine. So she was 100%.
She's like, this is my jam.
This is me right here. Like, she was 100% pageant mom. You know what I mean? So when she saw this, when I was in pageants and everything, I didn't do the best because I was always muscular, and there just wasn't the look. Okay. It was not appreciated at that time. So when I decided to stop doing that, I was going into dental hygiene, just finished school. My mom sent me a flyer for this football team that was like coming to Texas. And it was, there's two levels to it, right? You have like a G League type of setup where you do like a league before you actually go into the LFL to start playing, or you can kind of get recognized through there. Some cities have the bigger LFL teams where it's like a national thing. You get to travel all over the US to kind of go play different teams. And then some just have like more inner city, like full kit teams type of thing. So I played with the full kit team for a little bit, for about like a year. And then the LFL actually went to Austin, and I was on my way to move to Austin. So my mom was like, you need to try out for this. This is something I can see you doing. Like, you've always been so athletic. I know this is where you do your best. So I definitely think you should try out. This woman actually went and tried out with me because I was so nervous. And I'm telling you, my mom is not athletic. So poor thing, when it was out there out of breath, like just training with me, it was an open tryout because like in football, women don't necessarily, like, it's not like the NFL. You don't play throughout high school or middle school and get recognized for scholarships. So this was just an opportunity that I personally saw where it was like, oh, I can play this sport. I love football. Like I played co-ed football just for fun. And I was like, I just miss playing sports.
The people that are there trying out are like all body types, all ages, yes. All everything.
I mean, mind you, a lot of the women that are playing and are trying out are athletes, whether they played in college, whether they played women's basketball, some people were in the military. And you just have, again, all shapes and sizes. So just nice little plethora of women all over the place. But very strong-willed women, like every woman that was there was so determined. There was like a high focal point. There's a lot of women empowerment going on because you're trying out with these girls, and something that women don't necessarily do. This was like, girl, 10 years ago about almost. And this was before fitness, and this is before women's sports kind of started to kind of like reach that peak, or even women empowerment. It was just like, hey, we're out here trying to play football. This whole league's, getting started. We've seen it on TV. We want to be a part of this movement. And we're all coming together to see how we can make this team happen. That's kind of how it was. And it was legit. We had a lot of like NFL coaches out there that were kind of teaching us how to play football. But I mean, you had women that were coming out for the cameras, and you had some women that were coming out to really try to play the sport. So when I ended up making the team, I played for about 6 years. I loved it. I was on one of the most amazing teams. I met some of the most amazing women. Some of those women, I mean, all of those women were still very close to this day. Like I can hit up any one of them, and it's kind of like a family matter type of thing. It's really cool. But we got to travel all over the U.S. That actually helped me branch out to F45, honestly, because I started to get a lot of endorsements. I started to get some sponsorships. I started to get a lot of exposure. So I was
So did this become your full-time job?
Yeah.
Like you quit dental, you quit everything else that you were doing, anything else that you were doing, and this was full on.
I went all in. I went all in to brand myself for it.
So when people would ask you like, hey, what do you do?
Play football. And they're just like,
what?
Exactly. What do you mean? I still did training. Don't get me wrong. Like,
okay.
I ended up falling in love with training because I needed to work some way in the off season. And at the time, we weren't getting paid tons of money. Like in the beginning we weren't, but I'm like, I need to stay in shape. I know what it means to be in shape while you're playing sports. You have to. Nutrition's important. Exercise is important. I have an idea, but I wanted to teach myself more because I wanted to be really good. And when I started kind of working with myself in the off season, started to explore a little bit more into like health and wellness and fitness and meditation and all these additional things, it kind of helped boost my game. And I started to notice a significant difference in my athleticism. I started working with a couple of my teammates. We started kind of working and collaborating on exercises. And then I started training, like actually personally training, because I thought, hey, look, I'm learning all this knowledge. I'm going to get my certification and I'm going to put what I am learning to test, right? I'm going to start working with some clients, and I loved it. I think it was a fun way for me to kind of work with different body types and different people. And it also, kept me sharp during the off season, allowed me to kind of explore with a lot of different movements, different ways of training. I got to network with some of the best coaches in the city throughout Texas. I got to train with like some Dallas Cowboy trainers. Like it just really opened up this avenue before the avenue of fitness was like open. You know what I mean?
So that was football was what led you to decide like, okay, because you had already mentioned that you wanted to be a business owner. You knew you wanted to do entrepreneurship, business owner. Right. That's what kind of led you to decide, okay, it's going to be something with athletics.
Yeah, for sure. Because I loved it, and I didn't want to go back to having that feeling of hating of going to work. I'm like, that's not the way to live, and I have always wanted to own something of my own. I just didn't know how. And unfortunately, like in sports, they want you to highly focus on the sport. And so there's not really much guidance on what you can do with your brand and what you can do for, post, career. Post sports career. And I just wanted to continue to do what I was doing in fitness because I enjoyed it. And I thought that, what, if I'm learning all this in football and I'm learning and I'm training with a lot of like different clients and I'm putting a lot of these products to test and they're working, why not continue to do that? Like, you know what I mean? And learn more. And there's always something to learn in fitness. That's what I love about it so much. Even to this day, I'm always learning something because everybody's different and every body is different, so like, you're always going to find something new that one person attracts to or another person does, or something that the body's like something unique about it, mobility, flexibility, movement, speed, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? So I've always been a product of learning. And that's one reason why I love fitness is because not only is it good for us, but it will never stop teaching you, and I think if you're not learning, you're not growing. So it's definitely been the career path that I wanted to stick to and continue with, but I didn't know how to do it. And then that's where F45 came about.
So as you are deciding, okay, I'm going to go down this path, I want to do something related to athletic, all this training that I'm getting, all this knowledge that I'm receiving, I want to implement it into what I want to do as a career. What did you see at that moment? Were you seeing the financial value of it? And I ask you because for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of small business owners who we go in, for the very first time, when you don't see any financial value at the beginning, which is usually how it goes with any business, you're like, yeah, maybe this isn't what it was all hyped up to be. Maybe this is not what I should be doing. And if so, how did you overcome that? Like, no, I got to keep going.
When I left athletics, I think I had built a pretty significant brand with what I wanted to do. And I went to Australia for some time, and that's where I saw F45. So when I first saw it, they were on every corner. It was literally just, it completely flooded the city, and I had never seen anything like it. I went to go do a few workouts. I fell in love with the community. I was like, this is such a cool product. Why doesn't the US have this? And at that time, I wasn't really considering or thinking like, this is going to be the next business I open. I just missed it when I left, you know? And when I got back to Austin, I just randomly one day looked up F45, and there was one that was 40 minutes away from my house. So of course I just kept going in, and it was packed.
It wasn't in Austin. It was somewhere else?
I saw it so it's based out of Australia. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
No. But I mean, the one that you said was 40 minutes away from you.
Oh, no. Like, when I got back to Texas,
okay.
I randomly looked up if there was any F45s in the area, just because I had only seen it in Australia.
Okay.
And there was one 40 minutes away from my house, like all the way on the other side of Austin.
Oh, okay.
So when I was living there, and I drove there almost every day to go take a class because I loved it, and it was constantly packed. And I'm like, why are there not more of these? And it was such a brand new product to the US. I think the first one they had opened up was in LA, and they were just testing the waters because F45 was growing in other parts of the world. So like different countries have maybe like one or two, and I think the US maybe had two, and one was in LA and the other one was in Austin, which is crazy. Thankfully, you know, I was able to go, and I kept driving there, and it was always packed. And even though no one knew what the brand was, people just kept going in there. And it was because of the community and the energy, and the workouts were amazing, you know, very functional, very quick, very easy. So I kind of saw the niche of people that it was acquiring, and it was the working class person, the person who respects time, who needs 45 minutes to exercise, who wants something that's effective and that's doable, and that they get the coaching experience with like real trainers. So I'm looking at it and I'm just like, this is genius. Like this is going to blow up, and I've seen it blow up. So when I saw it in Australia, it was on every corner. So the product is there, you know what I mean? But it just hadn't hit. And I got involved. That's where I saw my in, because I was looking at it from a perspective of, I don't know how to run a business. I've never done anything, but I love this. I want to learn everything I need to know about this. And I want to be involved with it in some type of way, whether it was being an ambassador, whether it was being a trainer, whatever the case. So I did just that. I became an ambassador for a location because I was playing football in the city. So they wanted someone who could promote the business to bring more people in. So I ended up just marketing it in a way where it was helping me in my off season. So then athletes started going. And then there was actually a location that was opening up right next to my house. I have my training certification. I have my athletic background. I was already involved with the business as an ambassador. So I walked into that location and I asked for a job. I was like, I want to be a coach. I want to learn how to coach big group classes, because right now I'm just doing, you know, in-person training. I ended up staying with this gym for almost a year, I believe. And it was great. I had the most fun coaching. I met some incredible people, and it just kept growing. The experience was always really cool. You know, I always tried to put on the best experience I could. I loved the training aspect of it. And then I got into management, and I started learning a little bit more about the business side of it. And I was sitting on some money from football and endorsements and everything. So the one thing I was looking at was I could open up a location in Austin, which would, I mean, girl, the market, let's be honest, crazy expensive for, you know, what I was trying to do. Or I can come to San Antonio, where it's my hometown. I have a network. I know people, and it's not as expensive to open up a business. So I did a little bit of research on the real estate and commercial real estate side. And then I actually met my sports agent through an opportunity, and he kind of talked to me and asked what this F45 thing I was promoting, or what
was it about?
Yeah, what is this? Like, why are you constantly promoting this little gym? And I'm like, well, just come check it out. And he walked in while I was coaching a class, and he just kind of looked around. He said, let's meet next week. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Because in all reality, I was in sports when I had met him, and he saw us as an opportunity of, you're a female in sports. Let's see how we can brand you, and social media is becoming a big thing now. But I was like, I'm not going to play sports next year. And I mean, as awesome as that would be to continue, like, I've been doing this for 6 years. My body hurts. It was full tackle. Like, I can't continue to do this, but I want to open up a business. And he saw opportunity in the business as well. So that was my first, I guess, quote unquote, investor and partner. And I guess he kind of more so pitched the idea to other people, and they saw it as an opportunity because there was really no competitors. There was Orange Theory, really. The Orange Theory, maybe some CrossFit gyms. So there was an opportunity to bring something fresh and new with someone who knows how to run it and someone who knows how to create the experience. So lo and behold, I ended up meeting my partners, and next thing we know, we're developing a plan to open up our first location. And mind you, I had been a part of management. I have seen what it's like to coach the classes, but I never really opened up a physical location. So again, this is my introduction to business, like entrepreneurship. I didn't do it all on my own. I will never vouch and say, oh my gosh, I did it all on my own. No, I didn't. I had help. I had partners that were working with me who handled all of the background stuff. I was more of the face. I was more of the boots on ground. I handled the clients. I handled the experience. I handled the trainers. I handled the product. But I was also learning from people who understood how to handle all the back end, the finances, the contracts, the developments, with contractors. I was pretty much getting firsthand experience just sitting there watching while they were handling all of this. But they were doing the same thing with myself, where they were getting firsthand experience on what it's supposed to be like to open up a gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were kind of learning from each other, because even though they were very successful entrepreneurs themselves, they had a law office, they had the sports agency, they had a lot, they dabbled in so many different things. That's where I just was completely blind. And I had more of the training experience, and I had I could get a crowd going, and I could teach people how to create this awesome experience to make people want to come work out, which is, it's important. If people don't like it, they're not going to come. So how do you make it so likable that everybody shows up? And that's where we kind of like went hand in hand. But again, like this F45 was my blueprint and introduction to developing my understanding of entrepreneurship.
At this point, what was your family telling you? Like your mom, for example?
Support. Yeah. Big support. She came to my first workout, of course, and her and my dad, my dad, he lives in San Antonio as well. So even though they're separated, they always come together and shake hands for myself. So in every location I opened, they were present and they were there. So it was really cool. But my mom, she saw me have some breaking points, not going to lie to you. So did my dad. My dad's very motivating as well. I get a lot of my motivation from my dad. But my mom, if I can go over to her and be a little bit of a baby and just kind of like bawl my eyes out crying, that's one person I'm gonna do it with. I don't want anybody else to see me cry. And that's how my mindset was. Like, you're in a space where you're the only female in a room full of men, very successful, older, maybe like over 35, early 40s, very well established, very intelligent, and you're just kind of sitting there like the smallest fish in the ocean right now, like with a bunch of sharks. And I was terrified every day. Like every day I was, but I still did it. You know what I mean? And my mom kind of just told me, just go in there and just listen to everything that you need to. Don't go in there and talk like you know what you're talking about until it's your turn to talk about what you do. And they're not talking about fitness. They're not talking about gyms or trainers. Do not try to put any input because you don't know anything right now. She's like, but when you start to listen and you start to take notes and you start to kind of just get a little more familiar of how they communicate, then you can start to chime in a little bit more. And that's kind of how I approached it. Like, I would literally sit there on my laptop while they were talking. And if they said something I didn't know, I'd Google it right in front of them just so I can keep up with the conversation. Yeah. But yeah, my family was very supportive. My sister actually worked with me. She was my first employee that I ever hired. Girl was amazing. She could, the most charismatic person you'll ever meet, and she can sell anything. She can sell water to a fish if she wanted to. She is that good. And I saw that in her, and I love that we were able to have that bonding experience with each other because, we didn't get to have that growing up. We were very separate due to my mom and her dad separating. Like, they got a divorce. So I didn't really get to spend much time with them growing up, and I kind of did my own thing. And this was something that I knew she was good at, but I also wanted to teach her at the same time. Like, I want you to build this with me. This could be something that we could do as a family, and she already had that mindset. She's very driven. She's very smart. She's one of the hardest working people I've ever met. And I needed that as like my sidekick. Because even though I did have my business partners, they were handling everything up here, I was in a studio by myself. If I wouldn't have had my sister Jordan, I probably would have broke. She definitely helped me stay together the entire time. My mom was there whenever I had a cry moment, but Jordan was there during some of my lowest moments as well in studio, where she just had to, hey, I'm here for you. Let's do this. Yeah. I couldn't do it alone. And it was tough because, again, I'm trying to be the big sister. I'm trying to teach her, and a lot of the things that we did, especially when it came to opening up these gyms together, she taught me so much, so much. And I didn't want to give up. at all because I didn't want to let her down either. But she was in this with me. And if I would have given up, that means that she has to give up. And I know she didn't want to. So it kind of kept me going, and it kept me like pushing forward with everything because she loved it just as much as I did. It may not have been her. She may not have had skin in the game like I did, but she was a huge part of like that foundation of building. So, I mean, she never got enough credit for it, but she's one of the reasons like why F45 is what F45 is.
So what were some of your first roadblocks that you hit as a business owner that you were just like, because I know everybody hits them,
Mm-hmm.
but what, you know, little, small or big or whatever, but it's like,
let's talk about the first 2 months. The biggest roadblock of everyone's life, COVID.
yes.
Oh, girl. Oh, my God. Let me tell you. I don't even know how I did it, to be honest. I don't know how I didn't break down and like completely just like crumble because it was tough. Our first couple of months, you know, we had people flooding in the door, right? It was creating some noise on Saturday morning workouts. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those classes. It's like one of our biggest workouts. We only had like a couple of them throughout the day. And people would just line up outside the door. It was so much fun. And all of a sudden you have to go do a hard stop. There was no preparation. Nobody knew what was going on because the entire world was so confused. And I had to run a business that required multiple people to be in a small room working out together. When literally,
big no.
I'm like, exactly.
Big
the entire
no-no at
world's
that
biggest
time.
fear. Like, don't stay 6 feet away from each other.
Yes.
You know. So, I mean, that was definitely one of the biggest walls we had to get over. But in the beginning, I was trying to figure out, okay, do we create, you know, Zooms? Do we shut down? And my business partners were 100% trying to be as supportive as they could. And they were like, try this, try that. And it just, nobody knew what to do.
Yes.
Like, you know, so we had to figure some things out, but we figured it out. I'll tell you what, like we started off with Zoom workouts and then we went to Vimeo. We kept 60% of our member base alive. People were definitely still supporting us. They were chiming into the workouts because we were trying to promote how important it is for people to stay healthy during these times through mental stress and physical stress. And don't let yourself go because you're going through a hardship. Like you still have a community here. Let's keep it going. And I mean, we had some fun with it. Don't get me wrong. I learned how to kind of edit some videos. You know, I learned how to, you know, do more of the digital side of training, which was really cool. My staff was very much like involved. We did videos where each trainer would come in at a certain time of day and film themselves training with another trainer to really walk people through the workouts. We got to communicate with people live throughout the workouts. We hosted Saturday Instagram work. Like we did as much as we possibly could to ensure that people stayed positive during those times and that they were still involved, you know what I mean? And it was tough. Every day was tough because we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, thankfully, like my business partners had a little bit of cash where we were still able to pay our employees to kind of keep coming in. But even then, I think if we didn't pay them, I feel like somehow they probably would have still
they were just
wanted
that
to
committed.
And it was crazy. Like I've never been a part of something like that. Mind you, a team, yes, but these people were so involved and they were so like supportive. They came in throughout the day, even though they didn't have to, and it was stressful, but they still put on a smile as soon as that camera would turn on, and they would still communicate with people, and they were down for whatever we were going to throw at them. And that's like, for me, that meant the world because again, I was not alone. My sister Jordan, you know, we had a trainer named Taylor, Marissa, Leilani, Michelle, like all of the OGs from like my first location, the day ones, even though they knew that they were just as confused as we were of what was going to happen, they still came in and they showed out every day. We filmed 3 workouts a day, so that way you can work out with your favorite coach. You can chime in live or you can watch it later. Our members ended up having accounts that they can kind of log into. And then when we reopened, people were so excited to get back, you know, and even though we had to be very cautious about our next moves, so that way, it's perception, right? Like people were just like, oh, if F45 is not clean, we're not going. So not only did we have to be very cautious about how we promoted ourselves, but we also had to be very much aware, like, hey, we're still trying to run a business. Like we got to figure some things out. So trying to do that with what was going on in the world was insanely hard. And then on top of that, we had 2 other locations that were being built during COVID. We took opportunity when it came down to prices being a little bit lower for build outs. So you're opening up 2 locations, Bandera Point and Alamo Ranch, in one of the toughest times. Like it was a lot. It was tough, and it lasted for months.
Did you question yourself? Like, what am I doing?
Absolutely.
Like, this is too
every
crazy.
day. Every day. Every day. I lost sleep. I was getting to a point where I was tired, but I didn't want to give up, and I couldn't give up. There was a lot of people counting on this business to do very well. And I just that was my mindset. It's like, you don't got another choice. Like, you gotta go for it, and you gotta do what you gotta do. There was even a time, I think, where Alamo Ranch, the entire studio went down. Everyone got sick, and I was the only person sitting in that studio. I taught classes from 6 a.m. I didn't leave the studio till 9 p.m. that night. And it was like that for an entire week until people were able to come back. And I showed up every morning. I stayed for every single class. I slept in the studio. I cleaned the place up myself. I closed it myself. I handled sales. I handled calls. I handled coaching. And it worked out until the staff came back, and they came back and they hit the ground running like they had never left, which I really appreciated. It wasn't like and even though I went home and I went to sleep for maybe 24 hours, I took a nice long nap. I rested after that week because it was one of the toughest weeks I had ever been through, because I still had to manage and ensure the other studios were doing okay. Like, we had 3 studios open. It's just that one studio had completely went down. So who else is going to go in there and make it happen? I had other coaches that were able to kind of fill in here and there, but also you have the scarcity of people that were like, I don't want to go to that studio. There's so many people getting sick. And it's like, I mean, okay, if you don't want to help, that's perfectly fine. I'll do it myself. But it's still, I mean, I went in there and I put on a show every single class. I wasn't in there tired. It was my product, right? It was my business. So I 100% didn't want to have any change or gray area of, oh my God, she looks tired. Like, I literally walked in there, threw on some concealer, put on some eyeliner every day, and I put on a show every class. Like I was not exhausted.
Yeah.
But I was. Every day I was so tired and I didn't sleep. And there was even a time I even considered on just sleeping in the studio, because I also lived almost 30, 40 minutes away from the studio as well. So there's no way I could just go home and take a nap and come back. It was like, no, you got to stay in the studio and make sure business is still, going as usual. And that was one of the top studios in the city. So people were constantly calling it, wanting to join and to come be a member, or it grew very quickly, right? So we couldn't skip a beat. Like, it just had to kind of keep going. And that was probably one of the hardest weeks. But even on top of that, like, it taught me a lot. It also put a lot of respect on my name with my staff, because they were like, oh, you went in there and you handled it. You didn't just like crumble and, leave us with nothing, or leave the members with nothing. I was like, no, I walked in there and I handled what I had to handle, like put my chin up, and I did what I had to do. But they had a lot of respect for me after that. And even then it was just, set the example. So I feel like, with that being said, it just showed like how much I really cared about the business. And even though, I had doubt on what was going to happen, I still had the ability to ensure it was happening. You know what I mean? So until I didn't have the ability, or I didn't have, the backing through my partners or through the staff, then I just had to kind of do what I had to do and show up. So
once you get over this hump of COVID, things start falling back into place and seemingly are starting to normalize again. What's after? What's the aftermath for you?
Well, the studios are after COVID, it kind of it took off. I think it turned into it was a roller coaster for sure, but it was honestly, it grew and to more than I ever expected it to. And I believed in it, you know what I mean? But we just started getting a lot of exposure. We started getting a lot of people in the city were starting to go. We hit a huge spike where all the studios were doing well. And then, sometimes some months they weren't. But it just turned into a lot. Now we started growing more studios. I think we had 7 before I ended up leaving the business. But it just kind of tacked in one after the other. We opened up 7 locations in 3 years. And it was a lot of work. I will say this though, it with all that work, and I didn't understand a work-life balance. I didn't understand how to balance my personal life and my work life, because I didn't have a personal life. My entire life was committed to work. Right. And I got burnt out. I did towards the end. Each year it got bigger and bigger and more recognition. And it was amazing. I would never, when people recognize you and they start saying, thank you for bringing F45 to the community, or you get to go to these awesome events and you're recognized for your accomplishments and you're the face of a growing business and you're doing, huge workouts of like 300 people. And it's one of the most empowering things and fulfilling things I've ever done. even within sports or growing up or whatever. It was one of the most fulfilling things because I was helping so many people and I was giving them the opportunity to find love for fitness and wellness and a community that wants them to do well. And that was my favorite part about F45 was what it stood for, and what the community stood for. You know, San Antonio has a bad reputation for being unhealthy.
Yes.
So trying to establish something where people enjoy fitness and people enjoy the process of wanting to become healthy. And the classes were tough. Have you ever been to a class?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
so you know, like you're in there and it just makes you want to work harder. Like it gives you that energy and they're fun and they're exciting and they're always changing and you know, and it's functional training, so it allows people to really embody like movement, you know, and it teaches you how to become an athlete again. It was so much fun, and coaching was one of my favorite things to do. I would coach any time of day. I loved it. It was one of my favorite things because I got to help people and I got to put on a show. Or I'm a showboat. I played football. I played sports. I was always that person that was loud and throwing hands up and being charismatic on the field. So this was my own little world to do all of that in my own space. And nobody could tell me anything different. And when I created those experiences, I tried to set the example for trainers who were going to be involved with the F45 team. And I'm like, look, now I want you to come to one of my classes. Come check it out. And that's what I was known for, was creating high energy in these classes. And what I would hope is that it would translate into each one of the trainers that wanted to work with F45. It showed them what it was like to, you know, put on a cool experience, to make fitness fun, you know, not just walk around and cheer people on, but actually walk in and be a coach. Like you're a superhero in this space. Like that's what you should feel like with these people. And you're helping them. They're coming to you and they're asking for help to better their lives in all reality. So what I tried to instill when I was there was that example. And that's why, you know, I didn't want to back down because my word and my pride or my passion was on the line for what I did. And I was hoping that it just translated into every coach that joined the team. And each year it did. And I met some of the most amazing, most talented coaches. And I had the most incredible team. I really did. Like I met some of the coolest people who shared the same love that I did, you know, and even with the members, like the members were amazing people. You built a family, you built a bond with these people, and you see them change. I think it's really cool. People become better. They become happier. You know, they tell you their stories on a day-to-day basis of how your idea and how your business helped
is impacting them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So of course, every day was just like, it was tough. You know, you get to those burnout points. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm scared. My emotions, my well-being mentally was just not there, you know, towards the end. But when somebody would walk up to you and say thank you, and, you know, or you're in a class and you see people just smiling and having fun and working hard, it made it all worth it. It really did. That's why I loved going to the classes and meeting people. But I'm human, you know, and the lifestyle I was trying to live with doing so much and not giving myself anything broke me. It really did.
Did you realize that on your own, or were people around you?
I realized it on my own. Nobody knew, and nobody knew what I was going through. And I went through a really bad depression. I did. I won a huge award in the company. And this is what I knew. I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you feeling this way? Because of course, like I said, I'm a showboat. I loved it. And I got to talk at the F45 conference. I thought that was really cool. Me and my business partner got to talk. And I won an award for most motivational trainer of the global trainer of the year. And it was super like it was amazing. But after I wasn't proud of myself, if that makes sense. Like I should have been throwing my hands up. I should have, you know, I had run a trophy. Like all of my hard work and my accomplishments led me to this point. And I was numb. It was weird. It was so weird. And when I went home, I was just like, I should be using, like, this was supposed to be my next step, right? Same thing I did with football, leading me into F45. You got recognition, you have momentum, you have success. This is your next step. What now? And it's like, I don't know.
Once the award is received, once you have this recognition and you go back and it's just you now, are you able to pinpoint what it was, what situation or what it was about the whole experience that triggered that feeling that you had of not being overjoyed or feeling numb to the situation, to what was going around you?
I think I was just overworked. I wasn't doing the work I was doing when I first started, like what I love to do, which was in studio, boots on ground. I was doing all of the back end stuff. I was working more in an office. So it brought me back to my days as a dental hygienist, right? Where I just wasn't happy with where I was at. And I mean, it's sometimes that's for certain people. They want to work in an office. They want to, work on computers and things. It just wasn't what I was good at. So if I was constantly messing things up, we were at such a high point where you couldn't have any more mess ups. And things had to go well because there was a lot of money on the line and there's a lot of people counting on you. Now we have 7 studios and there was just so much going on, and it was a lot for one person to handle. And I feel like, we got to a point where we were growing so quickly and we just didn't really have the manpower in our reality. It got to a point where it was kind of falling on certain people, and it gets overwhelming. Hey, this business is not made for the weak. Entrepreneurship is not made for the weak. And I just hit that point where I think me and Amy and my business partners had different values when it came down to like what we want the business to become. And I was at a point where I hit a ceiling, and I got really depressed, and I felt like I wasn't giving anything to the business anymore, and I wasn't happy overall. And I let that marinate inside of me. And it was happening slightly before I won the award. I started feeling that way a little bit just because I felt like I wasn't bringing as much value. I didn't feel like I was appreciating myself anymore. I didn't feel like what I was doing was fulfilling because I was hiding in an office more than I was actually in front of people. And that's where I strive. I love to talk to people. I love to train people. I love to, do that. But I understood that my role was now back end and overhead and seeing things, putting the right people in the right places. And wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. And it made me really sad, really, honestly, it really did. I was so sad, and I felt like I wasn't smart enough to work on the upstairs office because I kept messing certain things up, right?
So it made you question yourself, doubt yourself.
Very much. And that's where it started to go downhill because I'm like, I'm going to fail. And I wasn't failing, but I also wasn't, in all reality, like I said, I worked with men. Men have a very tough ego, and men have they have tough skin. So when you're a woman and you're trying to be on the same page, like me and my business partners always said, we've been running this marathon, you're trying to sprint to catch up. And I got tired, and I lost love for what I was doing, and I got very depressed. And this is when my whole spiritual awakening happened. Before I ended up leaving, I went to Bali for a month. And I went because I was in a very dark place at the end of the year. And I just told my business partners, I haven't taken a vacation, a legitimate vacation. I haven't done anything for myself since we started this business. And I need to take a break. I'm burnt out. I broke down in front of them. And I was like, I'm burnt out. I don't know what value I'm bringing to anything anymore. I just told them I needed a break. So I let them know, I'm going to be leaving to Bali for X amount of days. And I left for some time, made sure everything was good before I left for some time. And I went on this whole journey of just trying to heal. Because
why Bali? Or how did that come about?
So a good friend of mine, he comes from a very rocky past, and I've known him for years, right? And he pretty much has been living in Bali for the past 4 years. Okay. He was going through a lot of ups and downs in life, and he went to Bali for the same essential reason, to find himself. Don't mean to sound cliche, but it's a real thing. When you end up losing your sense of identity, or you're going through so much change, it can get very depressing, and you get put in these places where, anxiety starts to pick up, stress starts to pick up. And I started feeling all of these things, and I would confide in him and ask him for help, because I loved his journey. He would constantly give me advice on his journey. And he said, you should come to Bali and let me help you. So I said, okay. So I ended up just booking a trip to Bali. I met some trauma healers. I worked with some trauma healers. I did a mushroom volcano hike. I did some breathwork exercises. I learned how to work with meditation. I was there for about a month. And even though I had the time of my life, Bali was amazing. My whole purpose of going there was to heal and to spend time away. I had not spent time away from work. I was in a completely different country on a completely different time frame. So it allowed me to escape. Yeah. And when I started to do that, and I started to go through these, I went to trauma healer twice, and it was one of the most crazy and powerful experiences I have ever experienced. I compulsed, I cried my eyes out, I almost threw up, and this woman was just working with me and my energy, and it helped me release so much pain that when I left, I was exhausted. I slept for like 10 hours and I woke up and I was completely refreshed, and I was just like, I need to reconsider some things. Like, it was so weird how my mind just completely shifted. And I was looking at photos of like F45 and getting really happy about it, and just like looking at old photos and even looking at recent photos. It's like, you did that. You were part of that, and you helped change so many people's lives, and you did exactly what you set yourself out to do. But I think you're done. Like, that's kind of what I told myself. And when I did, on the last day that I was there, like, I did a mushroom hike. We hiked the God's Land volcanoes, and I had like a whole spiritual moment up there as well, where I just kind of had like a whole breakdown at the top of the mountain. They call it a God moment. And you have this release, or this like, so much happiness just kind of flows through your body. Like, you just cry. And I wasn't sad and I wasn't in pain, but I was just like screaming, and I was laughing, and I was crying my eyes out. And at that moment, I had my friend was there with me, and he's just kind of like holding me and telling me, he's like, just let it out. Like, this is your moment of change. Like, it's time for you to just let it out. And I did. And I just felt so light. Like, I have always felt pressure since the moment that I started with F45, because there was a lot of pressure. I was the only female. I had businesses that counted on me. I had people trainers that counted on me. I had family. I had members. So there was always that, like,
it was a huge load.
A lot.
Huge
and
load.
I didn't realize. And then once I let it all out, it was like, oh my God, like, that was exactly what I needed. Like, I just felt like, have you ever like seen a knot like that's been knotted up for like years at a time? That was it. Somehow that knot became loose, and I just loosened up. And I was like, oh my God, like, I didn't feel tension in my shoulders. Immediately lost tension in my shoulders. Like, my face kind of just like dropped. I was smiling without feeling like I had to force something. Like, it was so weird. And when I came back home, I went into one of our studios, and I just kind of like looked around, and I kind of got teary-eyed. But it wasn't like teary-eyed because I'm like, oh, I'm leaving. It was like, I'm really proud of myself. I did something that I was not expected to do. And I think it was my time to go. So
that decision was made back there when you were on that mountain, or once you landed over here and you went to the studio and you looked at it again, or you came over here already with that mentality, like this chapter's over, I'm gonna turn the page.
Yeah, because I had a lot of clarity, right? And I think it happened when I was on that mountain, when I officially said, like, I didn't want to leave. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was the toughest thing for me to leave at 45. So tough. Because I had built a family, I built a business, I built a family, but I served my time where I needed to serve my time, and I feel like it's going in a direction that's different, but I will always have that foundation. You know what I mean? I always have those memories of the foundation of what it was, and what started it, and how it did help so many people. But when I was on that mountain, and I was just like the stress is finally gone. Like, it's okay to leave. Like, that's kind of what I felt. And I was like, it's okay to leave. Like, I feel strong enough to say that I did what I was supposed to do, and it's time for me to move on to my next thing. Like, trust me, because it was a very hard decision. Very, very hard. But I had just got to that point where I wasn't happy with it anymore, and I didn't feel fulfilled. And I couldn't fake it, and all of the faking it was like a mask for me to kind of try to figure out, like, okay, is this something that I still want to do, or what am I going to do next? Like, it's scary, because
so you were already thinking about that, like, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, I was. And I mean, it was crazy because, like, I mean, I prayed. I learned how to pray. I got very into religion. I started meditating. I was trying to really focus on my mental health. And it was weird because when I pray, I do it because I ask for some guidance, because I don't really have anybody else who can help guide me. And my dad got me to become very religious. So I would just pray and just ask for some signs, and lo and behold, signs just kind of started popping up everywhere. I had other companies trying to contact me. I had, clients that were wanting to work with me. I had marketing teams that were trying to help me develop my brand. And it all kind of happened at once. As soon as I left, people started calling. What's going on? We want to pick you up. We want to do this with you. We want to build this with you. And some of those opportunities I played around with for a little bit, but I, again, don't want to work for somebody. Mm-hmm. I was a part of a partnership. I didn't want to be in that partnership anymore. And I said, my next step is just going to be me going all in on me. And I can delegate and I can build, but I want it to be my idea. I want it to be something that I've created, I've established, I've built. I don't want anybody to tell me yes or no. I want to be able to be my own boss. I'm going to ask for guidance, because I need it. I think it's always good to have a mentorship or people that you kind of look up to who can help you take those next steps. But I had learned so much in my time with F45, so much. And I learned from some solid people. I had my business partners were business owners, and even though, they had their perspective on how they wanted to go, there was a lot that I did learn from them. And that's exactly why I was there. That's exactly what I wanted to happen with my time being with F45. I knew it wasn't going to be forever, but I hit the peak of what I need to do. I got recognized globally. I got, I built studios. I helped people, change their lives. I did everything I said I was going to do. And I learned how to do it properly on the business side. I got to do it my way and with my experience, but I also learned how to do it on the other end with contracts, money, financing, budgeting, legal. I listen to all of that. So I'm taking what I learned from people who are damn good at what they do, and I'm going to put it into my own establishment to build my own thing. And I mean, this year has honestly, I left F45 in February. And this year was just more so finding what that next step is going to be. Obviously, I know it's going to be in training, but was it going to be me investing in a partnership with another gym? Was it going to be me opening up my own gym, or me working on developing a brand and tackling something I've never done before, which is like the digital side of fitness. So this year has honestly been one of the years where it's been very fun because I'm my own brand now. I'm establishing my own thing. But I'm also a lot more strategic on how I approach different opportunities. I'm also very open and optimistic because I like to hear what other businesses are doing. And I'm also very keen to networking because I'm such as yourself. I want to be able to still be able to encompass myself in a community that has done so much for me, which is San Antonio. Love me some San Antonio. I still want to be able, I love the community aspect of it, but how do you tackle a community as one person? You got to make sure that you still stay relevant in the community. You still keep yourself involved, and you're still considered to be that resource that people need. So I like the fact that I've still been able to take the approach in fitness. I'm 100% going back to my roots, which has been so exciting. Training is one of my favorite things in the world to do. And I have genuinely been able to spend the time learning new techniques, going back to what I love. I built a solid base of clientele already with private clients that I'm working with. I'm establishing small groups. I'm working with online clients. I'm kind of taking that route to just get back to what I love and to learn as much as I possibly can. And then the next steps coming in within the next year, I'm looking at establishing something new and big.
Nice. How are you feeling emotionally and mentally?
Good, really good. At first it was tough. I got very emotional when I first left because I didn't really say too much when I left. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know how to handle it. It was something where I just wanted a clean
a fresh start.
Yeah, and I wanted a little clean breakup. I didn't want people asking questions or nothing. I wanted a fresh start without anybody in my ear. I didn't want anybody to know I left, because as soon as people found out, I started getting calls and I started getting, you should come work for this gym. You should do this. And it's not really what I wanted to do. I just wanted time to myself to
figure it out.
Yes. And reestablish myself and to enjoy what I do. I spent so many years, pressure, stress, lack of sleep, emotions, darkness, depression, and I just wanted a year to myself to fall back in love with what I love to do. And that's training, and that's helping people, and that's learning. And that's really what this year has been about, is finding myself again, not re-identifying myself, but creating the new version of me and putting myself in this place where I can continue to be a resource, but I can really take the time to establish me. I didn't want to just hit the ground running and say, I'm opening up a new gym, I'm doing this. I have the ideas, don't get me wrong. And I've had the investors, people come up to me, and I've had multiple people want to invest in me opening a gym. And as awesome as it sounds, one, I don't legally cannot do that at the moment. But at the same time, it sounds like a great time, but I did it so many times that I'm just like, let me breathe. Let me have fun with what I do again. and let me learn again. You know, I took 5 years of my life building at 45, and that's all I knew. I didn't look at anything outside of that. I didn't try to dabble in anything outside of that. It was 100% F45. It was my life. And I lost, like, the world keeps going on around you, you know, and there's so many things that I've learned even just in this space with social media, and certain things I'm learning with training, and certain things I'm learning with tech. And I'm just so fascinated by all of it because it's brand new to me. So it has a lot of my attention. And then again, I'm also on social media. I'm posting workouts that I personally like. I'm putting proof to my product and what I'm creating. I'm not following a script like I was with F45. Corporate was always making our workouts. And even then, I was still very trying to get as creative as I can with the training. Now I get to do my own thing, and I'm creating ebooks, and I'm creating programs, and I'm creating nutrition guides, and I'm all the things that I've been able to accumulate over years of time with pre-training at 45, with nutritionists, with different people I've been able to connect with. All of that knowledge I'm putting into one barrel, and I'm able to provide that to a consumer. So when people come and they want my product, it's a 100% representation of me and what I do and what I can provide, no longer someone else's brand. It's me. It's my methods.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For anybody who is listening to this or watching this, who knows you, who maybe was one of your clients, or, you know, one of your employees, somebody that worked with you or something like that, that you just mentioned, maybe wondered, like, what happened? Why don't you do this or that? Or maybe for somebody who's watching you or listening to you for the first time, what is it that you want them to get from your story? What do you want them to learn from what your experience?
It's okay to go through change. And it's okay to say that you're done with something, and it's okay to reinvent yourself. I think every 5 years people change. You know, everybody has a different mindset. You grow, and that's part of growth, right? But it's okay. Like, you're always going to have your sense of identity for who you are, but you're going to be a different person as you grow older, and over time you're going to become a different person. But I had to learn, especially throughout this year, to be patient. 100% patient. You know, you're not going to have it all figured out, not even a little bit. You're going to have to go through trials, tribulations, some good, some bad, some roller coasters. It's going to get emotional. It's going to get tough. But that is legitimately part of the process. Like, it's 100% part of the process for anybody. You have to go through those things to learn and to grow. You can't know what winning feels like if you've never lost. So in our reality, I want people to know that it's okay to change, to try new things, to see what you can grow into, and respect your past and respect who you are right now, but also be excited for the person who you can become with new things that you're going to introduce to your life. I think it's important. And also, I mean, always remain, you know, humble. You know, I think that's a big one. I got to a point with F45 where I did never humanize myself. I always tried to make myself be perfect, and I always tried to make myself seem strong, and it just wasn't realistic. And that's, I think, what got me to a point of losing my sense of identity and losing my self-love for myself. I just tried to be this superhuman that in all reality on the inside I was not. You know, I was trying to figure out how to constantly push every single day to be a perception of what everybody wanted me to be and who I thought I was supposed to be. And I feel like that's kind of what got me to the point where I lost my sense of identity and love for what I was doing, because it was no longer myself. So again, change is positive, change is good. It's supposed to happen. But in all reality, those losses are going to give you the resilience to be able to move with change in the most effective way. So I'm in that process right now. You know, I'm doing a lot of new things in my life. I'm having a great time. I'm falling in love with what I'm doing all over again, and I'm excited for the change that's coming to the future.
I'm so glad that you accepted the invitation, Chasity, to come and open up with to us and share your story. And I'm so glad that you're in such a healthier and more vibrant, more
spiritually, mentally,
yes,
all that stuff, girl. Like, it's Bali definitely did open my eyes to a lot of those things, help me understand how to practice these things, and it's been a game changer. You know, with my business relationships, with my current relationship, with my family relationships, things have just gotten, like, things are great.
How do we follow you on social media?
You can follow me on my Instagram with it's Chasity Methods, but method is with a 3, so that's actually my new business, training methods. So you can follow me there. You can follow me on Facebook with Chasity Morales _method. And yeah, website coming soon.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope that the rest of 2023 is nothing but good to you. And I hope that 2024 is also exceptional.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe. Remember to share this podcast, share this episode. And please visit us inside Savage Coffee, now located inside the Boeing Center at Techport. And of course, my neighbor with the noisy car had to drive by and make an appearance. It always happens.
It's better than my music that was playing. I was like...
Unfortunately...